Good evening, everyone. I want to call the meeting of Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 to order. If I can, today's the City Council special meeting and also the budget hearing. If I can have our city clerk please call the roll.
Mayor Flores,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Tharp,
Present.
Councilmember Noble,
Here.
Councilmember Dugo is absent tonight, Councilmember Diaz,
Here.
Councilmember Bousquet.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we are now moving on to the agenda approval. Are there any requests for modifications? City Manager McHugh?
Yes, Mayor, I did receive a call from Councilmember Dugo this afternoon, and she was requesting that the two discussion items, the one being the campaign-free zone and the other being the discussion related to the Historical Museum, asked that they be postponed to the September 28th meeting, as she was unable to be here this evening.
All right, does any council members wish to remove those items? If so, I need a motion. All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as is?
Motion to.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Noble, second by Councilmember Bousquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. All right, moving on for comments from the public for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda items, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Hey, Brett.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm sorry, I was out when that was being read. Does that mean I don't have to be here? Or I do have to be here for the Historical Society?
We are going to have that discussion later on tonight. Yep.
Okay,
No, we're not.
thank you.
That's one of the ones we just eliminated.
No?
No, we actually voted to keep it on.
We voted to keep them on?
Yes.
I thought we voted to take them off.
Nope. I asked for a motion to see
That's
if
why I'm up
anybody
here.
wanted to remove any items, and nobody made the motion, so,
I thought so.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so I don't see any other comments from the public, so we are now moving on to our first item tonight for budget hearing, fiscal year 2023 proposed budget, and then we have our Director of Finance, Terry Berenger, who's going to be leading us.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Terry Berger, Finance Director. And it's that time of year already. Tonight, we'll be establishing the tax value and setting ad valorem rate and approving the budget. This will be done in two ordinances. There are certain requirements that the city needs to read for the record, so bear with me for a few minutes while I read them. Florida statute section 200.065 specifies the procedural steps that must be followed by each unit of local government in the preparation and approval of the government entity property tax millage levy and annual budget. In accordance with this regulation, the certified taxable value, property value as of July 1, 2022, provided by the Palm Beach County property appraisers will be used to determine the ad valorem tax proceeds in calculation of the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 budget. The taxing authority, move this closer, the taxing authority must hold two public hearings to adopt the millage rate and budget. This evening's hearing is the first public hearing of the City of Green Acres to adopt the tentative millage rate and the budget for fiscal year 2022-23. The tentative millage rate and the budget must be adopted by separate votes. Pursuant to the direction provided by the City Council at the Budget Workshop held on July 18th and the Budget Meeting held August 15th, staff has prepared the two ordinances required in the truth a millage, or TRIM, process for the approval by the City Council. The ordinance to establish the taxable value and set the ad valorem rate, Ordinance 2022-31, must be passed first, followed by the ordinance to adopt the Budget Ordinance 2022-32. The first ordinance, 2022-31, establishes the taxable value and sets the ad valorem rate for the taxing authority of the City of Green Acres. The certified total taxable value of $2,540,979,752 provided by the Property Appraiser's Office is $279,911,413 more than last year's certified taxable value of $2,261,068,339. The 12.38 increase of the taxable value is due to an increase in the property value along with an increase in new construction. The millage rate of 6.3 mills applicable to the general fund levy for the fiscal year 2023 is 10.55% greater than the calculated rollback rate pursuant to Section 200.0651 Florida statute of 5.6986 mills that generated the same amount of property tax revenue as last year on the existing real and property value. The property tax rate of 6.300 mills set by Ordinance 2022-31 would generate $15,367,846 of ad valorem revenue, or $1,475,842 more than fiscal year 2022. The proposed ordinance to set the total millage of 6.300 mills and appropriate $73,013,015 for the operating of the cities of the city in FY 2022. The first budget hearing was advertised as a preliminary tax assessment notice as required by Florida Statute 200065. The second hearing to set the millage rate and adopt the fiscal year 2022 budget is scheduled for September 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the City of Green Acres City Hall and will be advertised in the newspaper of the local circulation. Staff recommends approval of Ordinance 2022-31.
Excellent.
Let's make a motion.
We're not there quite yet. I know we just went through the overview of the presentation, so if there are any questions or concerns that you want to address at this time from the council? No? All right, so, what was that?
Public hearing.
Yeah, I got it. We haven't even moved over to the public hearing yet. So with that being said, we are now moving on to our second item tonight, which is the public hearing for ordinance 2023-31, first reading. If I can have our city clerk please call or read the ordinance by title, please.
Ordinance 2022-31, first reading, establishing a taxable valuation and levying an ad valorem tax on property located within the corporate limits of Green Acres, Florida, as of the year ending December 31st, 2022, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
All right, and we have Director of Finance, Terry Berenger, presenting. She already went through the presentation once again. Are there any questions or concerns from the council? Seeing none at this point in time, I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-31. Anyone wishing to come up and speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. I would think everybody be happy, excited that the millage is going down. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. All right, with that being said, public hearing is now closed.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, to approve ordinance 2022-31 on first reading.
All right, I have a motion made by Deputy Mayor Tharp, second by Councilmember Noble. All in favor? And for the record, I am also in favor of this ordinance. All right, so that carries 4-0. All right, moving on to our next public hearing for ordinance 2023-32, first reading. If I can have the city clerk please call or read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-32, first reading, adopting an operating budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
And once again, we have our Director of Finance, Siri Behringer, leading this one. Are there any comments, questions from the council? Seeing none, at this point in time, I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-32. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward. State your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Okay, we need to.
Oh, did you need to read something into the record? Oh, okay, let's do that. I'll close public hearing, and then we'll read that into the record.
Okay, we'll go through a couple of slides and.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll look at adopting the operating budget for the fiscal year, October 1, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. Before we go in the ordinance, we'd like to look at some of the slides. Slide 1 shows the forecast in the general fund compared to 2023 budget. Now, since we have met with our auditor, and there were some administrative changes and recommendations in recording of the $10 million ARPA money. So you will see some of these numbers changed by that amount. It's more of administrative on how to record that revenue. The revenue and expenses show a very good forecast now. Again, the forecast numbers look rather surprisingly because of the $10 million. Even though the revenue is coming in strong, we still have to monitor our expenses and make sure they are to budget and they're not over budget. The proposed budget shows the general fund with expenditures over revenue by $13 million. This is to show the interfund transfer of the ARPA money to the projects. The second slide is the general fund, comparing the 2022 budget to the 2023 budget. And slide 3 shows the total budget of all funds. This does show the ARPA transfer between the projects. So this brings us back to the second ordinance, 2022-32. Ordinance 2022-32 adopts the operating budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023. The proposed budget increase appropriation revenues and expenditures from $49,561,753 in FY 2022 to $73,013,015 in FY 2023. Again, the first budget hearing was advertised in the preliminary tax assessment notice as required by Florida State Statute 200065. The second hearing is set the millage rate and adopt the for FY 2023 budget is scheduled for September 28, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the Green Acres City Hall and will be advertised in the local newspaper. The city staff recommends approval of ordinance 2022-32.
All right. Once again, are there any comments or questions from the council? All right, so I will open that up for public hearing one more time. So public hearing for ordinance 2022-32, first reading is open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, Public hearing is now closed.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-32 on first reading.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Deputy Mayor Tharp, second by Councilmember Noble. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries, I believe, 4-0. No one in opposition, right? Nope. All right, that carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to, Terry, thank you so much for all your work. We truly appreciate it. I know that you put a lot of time and effort and your team member as well, so excellent. Thank you. And Andrea, I know that you do, I know all the departments do a lot in this process, and thank you for guiding us through this process. All right, so we are now moving on to special business. Tonight, we have a proclamation for National IT Professional Day. I see our IT team here, so that's exciting. And then also the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. If I can have our city clerk please read the proclamation.
Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Green Acres proclaiming September 20th, 2022 as National Information Technology Professionals Day and proclaiming October 2022 as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. National IT Professionals Day was created in 2015 to show appreciation for the tech wizards who take care of the nuts and bolts so that the average worker station stays hooked up to the company network and operates flawlessly. Maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us has a critical role to play, and awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of the City of Green Acres information, infrastructure, and economy. The City of Green Acres do hereby proclaim September 20th as the National IT Professionals Day and October 2022 as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and encourage the residents of the City of Green Acres to support and practice cybersecurity safety measures. Thank you.
I want to invite our IT department to come up and receive the proclamation. You know, I think today, in today's age, cybersecurity becomes more important than ever. And this team here does a phenomenal job. These are individuals that you probably never see, but they really have the keys to the city, sort of, because they manage all the information, make sure that the people that shouldn't have access don't have access. So we thank you for doing that. Georges, your team does a phenomenal job, so I'm super excited to be able to present you with these proclamations.
Just something real quick. Good evening, Mayor, council members, City Manager McHugh, coworkers, members of the public. As the Mayor said, significant percentage of the city's daily operations relies on the use of information systems, highly complex applications, down to the iPads that the inspectors use in the field. And per our mission statement, the IT department is dedicated to providing innovative and secure technological solutions in support of all departments in the city. And that mission would be impossible to accomplish without a solid, dedicated team of IT professionals. Jean, Eve, Cress, I witness daily your efforts to make sure that our coworkers have the resources and assistance they need to get their jobs done. And in my opinion, the city's fortunate to have each one of you on board, and I'm grateful that I get to be your colleague. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity to publicly recognize this team for their hard work and dedication.
I can have the council stay here. All right, we are now having, moving on to Proclamation for National Hispanic Heritage Month. If I can have our city clerk please read the proclamation.
Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Green Acres proclaiming September 15 through October 15, 2022 as National Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Americans lift up our communities and our economy as entrepreneurs, executives, and small business owners and make contributions in areas of science, art, music, politics, academic, government, and sports. Therefore, the City of Green Acres do hereby proclaim September 15 through October 15, 2022 as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Green Acres and urge all citizens to honor the achievements and contributions made by all Hispanic Americans to our great country. Thank you.
We would like to invite the CEO of the Hispanic Chamber in Palm Beach County, Maria Antunes, to join us in receiving the proclamation. Thank you, Maria. Want to say a few words?
Thank you. I know I don't look Hispanic, but I am. Born in Cuba, arrived here in '62. Just real quickly, thank you, Mayor Flores and Council Member. I really appreciate it. Just to give you a really quick history of Hispanics in Palm Beach County, we're currently representing close to 27%, if not over at this point. We're the second largest power spending in the country, and we're the third spending power for mortgage, home, and automotive cars. So and we have over 10,000 Hispanic businesses owned in Palm Beach County. That alone should tell you the contribution that we make in Palm Beach County. So I am very honored, and I thank Mayor Flores again, Council Member. I thank you very much for this. I will accept this very proudly, and I'm honored to accept it on behalf of the Hispanic community. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our next proclamation, Firefighter Appreciation Month. If I can have our city clerk please read the proclamation into the record.
Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Green Acres proclaiming September 2022 as Firefighter Appreciation Month. Fighting fires is one of the most hazardous professions requiring physical strength, extensive training, courage, endurance, and a self-concern for the welfare of our citizens. Therefore, the City of Green Acres do hereby proclaim September 2022 as Firefighter Appreciation Month in the City of Green Acres, and we thank all of the firefighters of Green Acres Fire Rescue for all of their efforts and hard work. Thank you.
I can have our fire rescue team join us up here, and while they matriculate up here, I do want to, tell you guys that, and I think I probably say this 4 or 5 times throughout the year, but we're extremely proud of the work that you do. When I know that my council members probably feel the same way. When we see that green truck running around, we're extremely proud of the work that you do. Not only that, you guys go above and beyond the call of duty most of the times. I know I've seen that big pink fire truck that you guys bring into the hospital every single year and give toys to the kids. So just know that I know our residents are very proud of the service that you provide our community and the big heart that you guys have. So thank you for that. I know that Chief probably has a few words, and it's an honor to present this to you guys.
One more.
All right, we have one more proclamation. Our next proclamation is Hunger Action Month. And if I can have our city clerk please read the ordinance into the record.
Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Green Acres proclaiming September 2022 as Hunger Action Month. Since 1981, Feeding South Florida has worked to end hunger in the City of Green Acres by providing our community in need with immediate access to nutritious meals. The City of Green Acres is therefore committed to supporting Feeding South Florida. Together, we can achieve a hunger-free South Florida. The City of Green Acres do hereby proclaim September 2022 as Hunger Action Month in the City of Green Acres and call upon the good people of Green Acres to join in recognizing this critical issue during this month of observance. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could have Stuart Hanif join us up here. Stuart.
You got it? Okay. Good evening. Thank you so much, Mayor, council members, for this wonderful honor. As you all mentioned, I'm with Feeding South Florida, and we are the largest domestic hunger relief organization in the South Florida area. We cover 4 counties, including Palm Beach County. And a lot of folks think that after the pandemic, the food insecurity rate has gone down. Share with you a startling number that before the pandemic, we were feeding about 706,000 children, individuals, family members every single week. That number currently, with supply chain issues, rising inflation and cost, is now 1.1 million. 1 in 9 adults go to bed hungry, and even sadder, 1 in 6 children don't have enough food to eat. Hunger Action Month is helping to raise awareness, visibility, and dollars around this issue. You can see we're going orange. So we ask you this month at some point, wear orange. It's a great conversation starter. It helps let people know that the hunger, face of hunger has changed. So many more people now after the pandemic and recovering are struggling than ever before. And these types of acknowledgments and your support continue to help us do the work that we do. So we thank you on behalf of our entire organization and most importantly, the clients that we serve. Thank you for thinking of us this September, and go orange.
Yes. Thank you. Have a good night.
That felt good. We haven't done one of those in a while, right? It's great to recognize the community once again, our staff members, for the work that they do. So I'm glad that we're able to do that again. All right. Moving on to our next item, which is a presentation of the comprehensive plan update, and we have our zoning administrator, Karen Gardner-Young, presenting.
That on? Yep. Thank you, Mayor. City Council members, hard to beat what we just had, but hopefully we'll stay on a happy mood. So I've been before you before to explain the comprehensive plan, where we're started. This is kind of like a year update, kind of tell you where we are. So I just wanted to go back again, because it's been a while since we've talked about the comprehensive plan. Again, the comprehensive plan needs to be adopted by every jurisdiction in the state of Florida. It is a public guide to the community decision-making. It's used as an assessment of the city's needs. It's a statement of community values, goals, and objectives. It's a blueprint for the community's physical development. And most of all, it's a public document adopted by governments to continuously update as conditions changed. Now, under the state statute, you're required to have a certain number of required comprehensive plan elements. So each topic is a different element. So the required ones are transportation, infrastructure, capital improvements, conservation, housing, intergovernmental coordination, property rights, recreation and open space, and future land use. Although these are required, it doesn't mean you're only restricted to the required. So the city of Green Acres actually adopted some that were over and above what the requireds are. So for example, we adopted annexation, and the jurisdictions in Palm Beach County adopted school concurrency, which at one time was required and is no longer. In this round, we are actually recommending 2 additional elements, one being economic development, the second one being healthy communities. What we are talking about here is update to our comprehensive plan. And under state statute, jurisdictions every 7 years are required to review their comprehensive plan to determine whether any updates are required. Typically, updates are required if you had substantial changes within your jurisdiction. That could be population, could be a hurricane came over and destroyed the jurisdiction. So it could be any number of reasons that you'd want to take a look. You can review your entire comprehensive plan, or you could review only certain sections of your comprehensive plan. So the actions that staff have taken so far, I put into 3 categories: community engagement, expertise support, and what work we have actually begun. So first we want to talk about community engagement. And again, one of the items I talked about at the beginning is basically a vision, is what your comprehensive plan is. And you can't determine your vision without talking with your residents and understanding what they feel that the city it should be today, was yesterday, and what it should be tomorrow. So I categorize those in 3 areas. It's to inform, consult, and cooperate. So inform is basically providing information. Since September 2021, we did create a web page. It is just comprehensive plan. If you go to our website, it says comprehensive plan. Included in it, it describes what elements are. It includes the copies of the existing elements. It outlines what we've done in June and August of this year. It also includes the last comprehensive plan presentation, such as this one will then go on after I'm done with this, and then recordings of any virtual meetings that we've held. We've also placed notice on the city's web channel at City Hall to make sure we're keeping everybody informed as we can. The next step is to consult, and that's to obtain input and feedback from community members or stakeholders. So first of all, we held numerous public workshops with the Planning Board and Adjustment. They heard and provided input on the various elements. We've also created a comprehensive plan survey. We provided that survey information by social media. I've also sent out, we have a list of homeowners association contacts, so I sent out to them requesting that they provide it to the residents within the HOAs. And we've also located it on our website. You can go directly. There's a label that says community survey, and I'll take you right to the survey. It's very short. It's only about 6 questions, gives you some priorities that you can talk about, and also gives you an option to provide some information. And the last section is then to cooperate, and that's to partner so that we can get some decision-making, provide some advice or innovation ideas. So we've done this in 2 areas. The healthy communities element, we actually created an advisory staff committee. That committee has created the goals, objectives, and policies for this particular element, and those meetings were held during the months of March and June of this year. That committee or advisory committee basically comprised of police, fire, and recreation representatives. We've also held 2 virtual meetings. One was on transportation, and for that we included and had members that represented Palm Beach County, Florida Department of Transportation, the Public Works Department, PalmTran, the TPA, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and the school board. So we tried to get as many stakeholders who might have an interest in the actual topic at hand. It was very well attended. It was really, people were involved in it. It was a great opportunity to get input and information. That was held on June 29th, and that is one of the meetings that is on our website as an audio tape that you can listen to what was discussed and who said what. The second meeting we held was on Parks and Recreation, and that we had some leagues represented, we had Palm Beach County staff, we had recreation staff, and we had the Palm Beach County Sports Commission. And that was all held on June 22nd, and also that audio tape is also available for anybody to listen to. So those were the steps we took regarding involving the public and getting public support. The next step we're taking is expertise support. Although I like to think I can rewrite the entire comp plan, there's only so many hours and days that we have. Particularly, we do have a deadline. This does need to be adopted by September of next year. So we did go out for planning services. So just to let you know, what I did is I divided it amongst several consulting groups. So that way you don't have one, you could get it done in the time frame requested. So I have Calvin Giordano and Associates, and they are going to be helping on the housing, future land, annexation, and the economic development elements. I have Kimley Horn, who's going to help me on the transportation, recreation, and open space and infrastructure. And then I have WGI, who's helping on the conservation and healthy communities. And just to make sure staff didn't feel left out, we made sure we left some for staff to do, which was the intergovernmental coordination and capital improvements. What work have we actually done? So, first, we sent notice to the Department of Economic Opportunity. That is the state agency that reviews all comprehensive plans. We were required to notify them by September 1st that we plan on amending the comprehensive plan. That letter was sent and acknowledged, so we've met that requirement. Next, we've actually started working on the language for the elements. So staff has drafted goals, objectives, and policies for the following elements: conservation, recreation, open space, intergovernmental cooperation, capital improvements, annexation, infrastructure, healthy communities, and economic development. So what our intention is, we're going to take those goals, objectives, and policies, we will hand those off to the consultants, and then say, consultants, now get me the data and analysis to support what those goals, objectives, and policies are. So you will notice there are some that are not there. We didn't include transportation, housing, those are going to be left to the consultant because there's a lot of data and analysis that we need to collect in regards to those particular topics, and I didn't feel it was appropriate to divide them up. We've also started our coordination meetings with all our consultants to make sure they understand that they need to be at certain meetings, when the deadlines are for certain documentations, and then we've been on a constant basis reviewing comments and results in regards to the community survey. But that doesn't mean our work stops here. We have to continue in our work process. So one of the things is we need to continue with our community outreach. Again, I think I've asked the last meeting, again, you're our ambassadors out there. So please make sure that you let them know we're going through this process, let them know that they have an opportunity to comment, whether they're a business owner, whether they're a resident, whether they have any interaction with the city. We will continue to update our website. We're going to continue to give notices of meetings and continue to let the people know there's a survey out there. The next two events we have are community meetings. Those are in-person meetings. They're scheduled at the community center. One is going to be held October 26th, Wednesday, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The second one is going to be October 29th, a Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And I picked those two, figuring if people work during the day, you want to have a nighttime meeting. If people are working during the week, we want to make sure we have opportunity in the morning on a Saturday. I am working with the PIO in order to make sure we get notice out on those meetings as quickly as we can. We're also working with the consultants on what's expected within the documents that they need to provide us, and then just to provide you the public hearings and what we need to do in the future. So although the planning board has actually heard each one of the elements individually, we do need to get a formal vote from them. So I didn't want to hit them all at once, so that's why I kind of did them separately. So I'm expecting to bring back to them in May the final document for them to approve and provide a recommendation to the City Council. Then we have also, we'll need to submit to the Department of Economic Opportunity, which we would expect in July. So how it works is you go to the Planning Board, first reading of the City Council, transmit to the Department of Economic Opportunity, and then comes back to the City Council for final adoption. So the Department of Economic Opportunity has an opportunity to review. Their review is limited to state interest. So, some of the things that might matter to you, they don't have any jurisdiction to take a look at. Matters of state interest are typically like airports, roadways, railways, things like that would tend to be a state interest. Not so much conservation elements, for example. Whether you're requiring electronic vehicles, that's not really an interest per se of the state. It also gets sent out to your neighbors' jurisdictions. It gets sent out to the county. So it does get the full breadth, and we need that time because when we transmit it, we get comments back. We need to make sure we can address whatever those comments are. So second reading would be in August, which gives us a little bit of a break because we'd have to have it adopted in September. If we don't adopt it by that time period, the result would be that we're not permitted at that point to adopt any future land use amendments. That is the penalty for not adopting your comp plan on time. So that is basically the update. If you have any questions or comments, I tried to give you an overview of kind of what we're doing. It obviously doesn't really reflect all the work that's going in, but I feel we are on schedule and we will get it done in time period. And every time I have an opportunity to bring this forward is another opportunity for people to know that it's there and to partake. So I'm available to answer any questions or comments.
Any comments or questions from the council?
The only comment I can make is a lot of work, and we
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a heavy lift, but we're going to do it.
We're glad you're on top of it.
Thanks.
So my question is, at what point do we get input? Do we, the council, sit together and, because I don't want to, provide our input in June 2023. I think these are housing is something that I definitely want to be able to talk to the council about how do we meet that objective? Do we meet with the people that we're going to hire? Do we talk to you guys as the team? Because I know you guys are already drafting goals, and I think those goals should also come from the people sitting up here. So how do we provide our input? Do we have to go to the October 26th meeting?
Well, obviously you can go to those meetings. I think the meetings were really intended to hear from the residents, not per
Correct.
se from council. Mayor, it's a great opportunity for us to discuss that as a group. I can do the same thing I did with the planning board, which I can bring to the meetings. If it's okay with the city manager, we can bring to the meetings a little, element per, or not, I didn't do one, I did like 2 or 3 together. Give you an opportunity to workshop it, so we're not voting on it. Because I think you vote on it individually, it makes it much more difficult than if you just do it as one document. You can talk with the city manager, you could do a special meeting if you wanted to do it just on that. You could do it with meeting with the consultants or however. I am open to whatever this council would like to do.
So I guess that's a question that I'm posing to the council. How do you guys want to provide the council's input into this plan? Do we want to do a workshop? I think that's probably the best time that we can just solely focus on this document. Everybody, do I get consensus? Maybe find a meeting I know we're canceling one, but it's because the schedule that we're coming up. But I don't know, I'll leave it up to our city manager and yourself, and you guys can figure out a good time for us to. I'm going to be attending these meetings just to listen to what people have to say. I hope that we get a good turnout. So for those of you guys here, spread the word, please.
And I do thank you for the opportunity, because I'm going to slide in here. So the purpose of those meetings is not for me to do the talking.
Right.
I want everybody to understand. I'm going to do a very, very short presentation, similar to what I did here. This is what a comp plan is. And you're not going to hit all the elements. So basically, my thought was that we would open it up to who's ever there and say, okay, let's pick 3 or 4 that this group would like to discuss. And then we can concentrate on those. If we have more time, then we can add on more elements. And that way we can focus on what the individuals who've given their voluntary time to come to this meeting, for them, that's important to them, for us to do. So actually, the 2 meetings could be different, because you could have different focuses depending on who's attending those meetings. So it really is for them to talk and just to tell us, what their vision is, what they like, what they don't like, what they want to see, what they feel needs to be done, what they feel we do good. It's not a negative either. It's what we're doing good, what we could do better. So it really is kind of open for us to kind of talk about, what we kind of want to include in these particular areas.
So, Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Busquet?
I just want to stress that if we attend these meetings, we really can't speak, or
Right.
it's sunshine. Okay.
If we attend,
If
it
more
would be
than
more
one
to
of us.
listen than anything, right? So,
I have a couple of questions too.
yep, Councilmember Diaz.
So I just have a few questions. First of all, thank you, because I know this is a monumental feat that you're tackling here. The visioning that was done in the past, is that being considered during this comp plan review? Is it being shared somehow with folks so they know, because that's already kind of been done, that whole visioning process was done, and a good report came out of it. I'm just wondering if are we tying that back into now the comp plan review?
So it's a great point. I wasn't around at the time that the visioning was being done. It is appropriate for the visioning to be included because that, again, is one of the purposes of this plan. And, happy to, again, we didn't get quite to that point, Susie, but again, happy to make sure we account for it. Also, if anybody calls me or I have anything in an email, I have a pile that I'm going to make sure that gets addressed as well.
I mean, I don't know if perhaps just a thought if that can be linked on that same webpage that you
Sure.
have, so that there's a reference point for those that are looking to, be more educated about it. My other question is businesses. Are we involving the businesses in the meetings as well and making sure that those businesses that they're stakeholders in our community as well are aware of this process and that it's happening?
So we're not excluding them at all. And like I said, it's not, you're absolutely correct. It's not just to the residents. And that's why I said anybody who may have touched the city in any particular way, we want to make sure we get their opinion as well. So, this is an ongoing outreach. So, we had the HOA list, so it's easy to send it out to them. I'm a firm believer of getting away from my desk, so I have the name of some of the shopping center owners. So we're going to send it out to them as well in the survey and try to get the information out.
And then the last question I had, you mentioned the website, the information for these meetings is on there. Is there a graphic or something that we can share with the different communities to help get the word out about these events as well? About the meetings, I should say.
Yeah, well, I'm working with the PIO. We're trying to get the invitation. We're trying to get that finalized, and we will certainly make sure we get it out as quickly as we can.
Thank you. I know it's, like I said, it's a huge feat to tackle, so thank you for taking it on so bravely.
Excellent. And Councilmember Noble.
Well, I know it's nice that all the council persons want to show that they're enthused and they want to be at these activities to have a heads up what's happening, but just to caution you, if you have 2 council people at a meeting, it's a problem. So you have to go back and look at this, whether you can do that or not, or you want to do that.
I just to clarify, and we can look at our attorney here, but it's only a problem if we engage in discussion or conversation at that point, but to go and listen, I don't believe that's, and I think we're talking about the sunshine law here, so I'll defer to Christie, our attorney.
Thank you. Yes, you're correct, Mayor, that with the Sunshine Law, all of you can be present at these meetings as long as nobody engages in a discussion at that meeting, meaning 2 or more of you talk about the issue. So what is recommended course of action is if 2 or more show up at these meetings, that everybody just sit and listen, that nobody speak publicly at the meetings, and certainly you don't talk together about what's going on at the meeting.
Excellent. So we got clarification there. Are there any comments or questions regarding the comprehensive plan update? No? All right. Anything from your end, City Manager McHugh?
No, nothing on my end, no.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Gardner-Young, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. All right, we are now moving to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Busquets, second by Councilmember Diaz. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. Moving on to our regular agenda, we have a public hearing for ordinance 2022-02, second reading. If I can have our city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-02, second reading, annexing 1 parcel of land totaling approximately 20.1183 acres located at the southeast corner of Lake Worth Road and South Jog Road at 4180 South Jog Road as requested by the petitioner Matthew Scott of Dunley, Mescal Backman, LLP, agent for the owner, LW Jog SC Ltd, providing for redefining the boundaries of lines of the city of Green Acres to include the subject property in the city's official boundary map, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
All right, and we have our city consultant, Kara Irwin Ferris, presenting.
Kara Irwin Ferris. I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you tonight. This is the final second reading and adoption of Ordinance 2202 for the voluntary annexation of Lake Worth Plaza West, which is located at Lake Worth and South Jog Road. So this is voluntary annexation. It means they came to us and they requested to annex to become a part of our city. And you can see from the map in front of you that we already have the other three corners. That's fantastic. And now we're going to pick up the fourth corner, which really helps answer or make service delivery so much easier. And it helps square off our boundaries, all the good things that annexation allows us to do. So we do have statutes that we have to look at, whether or not it's contiguous and compact. And it is. It's adjacent to our city. It's a compact piece of property. We also have the second question of whether or not enclaves are created, and they are created here. Usually this is not allowed in the test for voluntary annexation, but we can create enclaves with the adopted interlocal service boundary agreement that we did with Palm Beach County. So this is part 2 of the statutes, and it gives us the ability to annex voluntary annexations within an ISBA area, even if they create enclaves, which usually isn't allowed by statutes. So with this annexation, we are only doing the plaza, which is the inline plaza. The enclave parcels will be annexed later. So yesterday, I attended the Board of County Commissioners meeting where they adopted the ISBA. So now we have an agreement with them that allows us to move forward with this adoption of this voluntary annexation. Previous to that, we couldn't move forward because when we created the enclaves, others could object. So, and we didn't meet statutes. So this ISBA allowed us to do that. So we did work a long time to get it completed, a couple years. They did second reading yesterday, and that allows us to move forward today with the voluntary annexation. I'm also working with the county on another agreement to pick up the enclaves so that they will come in under another section of the statutes that allows you to do an interlocal agreement with the county to bring in enclaves less than 110 acres, which we've done in the past before, even across the street. So we're working on the language with them now. And actually one of those parcels the county actually owns, so they're going to be a part of that annexation as well. So after all is said and done, we are recommending approval of annexation 2003 through adoption of ordinance 2022-02. This ordinance tonight has been properly advertised and noticed, and the county is aware that we're moving forward. We sent to them our urban services report and everything associated with doing a voluntary annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council? No? All right. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it up for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed.
I move that we approve ordinance 2022-2 on second reading.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. I have a motion made by Councilmember Noble, second by Councilmember Diaz. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. And the next one, I'll give it to Councilmember Busquets. All right. Our next item is public hearing for ordinance 2022-15, second reading. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-15, second reading, amending Chapter 16 zoning regulations, Article 2 administration by deleting in its entirety current Division 11 adult entertainment establishments and adopting a new Division 11 entitled Adult Entertainment Establishments, which shall formally incorporate Palm Beach County's Adult Entertainment Code, and setting forth those specific opt-out provisions from county's Adult Entertainment Code, providing for severability, preservation, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. And we have, once again, zoning administrator Karen Gardner-Young presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. Karen Gardner-Young on behalf of the City of Green Acres. As stated, this is second reading of the Adult Entertainment Ordinance. I'm more than willing to make a presentation. The attorney was here last time. Again, really, the intent is for us to adopt the Palm Beach County ordinance, which we're already bound by, but to make sure that we're opting out of those provisions, which something that the City of Green Acres would not be interested in being part of. So this was reviewed by the Planning Zoning of the Board. They recommended approval. At first reading, the City Council reviewed it and recommended unanimously 5-0 to recommend approval. Staff, as well as Christie, are here to answer any questions we may have. We are recommending adoption of ZTA 2205, Ordinance 2022-15.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council? All right, let me go flip back again. All right, I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-15. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed.
Motion to approve ordinance 2022-15 on second reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Busquets, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Susie?
Yes.
All right, that carries 4-0. All right, moving on to ordinance 2022-20, first reading. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-20, first reading, amending Chapter 8, Licenses and Business Regulations, Article 3, Business Taxes, Section 8-46 through 8-72, to clarify business tax receipts requirement for home businesses and amending the fees to obtain a business tax receipt, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, inclusion in code, and an effective date.
All right, and we have zoning administrator Karen Gardner-Young presenting.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is Karen Gardner-Young on behalf of the City of Green Acres. This is the second time that we've come before you on amendments to the business tax receipt. These are actually pretty easy ordinances, amendment changes that we have in place. There's two of them we're requesting. One is we're required under state statute to state that home occupation inspections will only occur when the use triggers the inspection. So that would be something like a daycare, where you have health safety issues. So if you have a business office, that would not generate an inspection to go to the house. So we need to clarify that in our ordinances. The changes have been reviewed by our legal counsel. The second change is we're recommending an increase in the fees by 5%. So under business tax receipts, this area is actually very regulated by the state. So first of all, you cannot adopt increased fees every year. Under state statute, you can only do it every 2 years. So the last time we did it was 2018. We skipped 2020. I'm assuming part of it was because we were in the pandemic. So we're basically 4 years since the last time we increased the fees at all. The second thing is state statute only authorizes us to increase it to a maximum of 5%. So those are the two things we're requesting. One, to be in compliance with state statute, to state that home inspections. Now, this doesn't affect business inspections. This doesn't affect rental inspections. It only talks about home inspections. So it's asking that we only require home inspections when the use triggers the inspection, and we're recommending the increase in the BTR fees by 5%. This was reviewed by the Development Review Committee on June 16th. No objections were received. It didn't go to the Planning Zoning Board of Adjustment because it didn't make amendments to Chapter 12 or Area 16, which is what they have jurisdiction over. We are asking for adoption of ZTA 22-16 through Ordinance 2022-2, or actually requesting approval. This is just first reading. I am available to answer any questions or comments you may have regarding the particular text amendments.
I'd like to begin the question. What is the projected, by increasing 5%, what is the projection of growth in that area?
So, I'll be honest, I'm a straight shooter. We're still trying to figure out our BTRs and get them exactly correct. Because what happened is we merged the fees for the filing fees along with what the penalties were. So I don't want to give you a figure that I'm going to make up and be sorry later I gave it to you. So as soon as I get that number, Mayor, we will make sure we get it to you. I can tell you, I can just give you some numbers. There's about 1,500 BTRs that we issue a year. So, but that encompasses building, home occupation, and rentals. Probably the biggest portion of that is rental units. I mean, think about it. You got an apartment building that's got 500 units. There's, 500 BTRs because you need for each basically unit. So, and then the next one typically would be your commercial businesses, then followed typically by home occupations. So I will be very happy as soon as I get a clear and accurate number to provide it to you within the appropriate time period.
Okay, so this is the first reading, so we can.
That is correct.
We can still change things
I'd like to make a motion.
by the second one. All right, make your motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-20 on first reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Noble, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. At this point in time, are there any other comments or questions from the council? Perfect. All right, so I have a motion made by Councilmember Noble, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries, 4-0. If you can either
will.
email me or, to the council, that would be.
I'll make sure Andrea gets it, and
Well,
she'll
for
make
the
sure she gets
second
it.
reading, we could have that number.
Absolutely, I will try my best. Like I said, I don't want to give you something that isn't accurate, because then it's worse than giving you nothing.
Perfect.
But
Thank you.
you got it.
All right, moving on to, to public hearing. We're on item 19, if you're keeping track at home, by the way. Public hearing, ordinance 2022-21, second reading. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-21, second reading, amending Chapter 16 zoning regulations, Article 7 landscaping, Section 16-1249B6 to clarify when tree removal permits are not required for single-family detached dwelling units in accordance with recently adopted state statutes, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in code, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, and we have zoning administrator Karen Gardner-Young presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members. Karen Gardner-Young on behalf of the City of Green Acres. This is second reading of this ordinance. I'm happy to make a presentation again. The need for this was to be in compliance with state statute. Again, state statute now allows individual homeowners in single-family dwellings in order to remove trees without the need of obtaining a permit or approval from the city, assuming they get an executed letter by either an arborist, a certified arborist, or landscape architect, and they have it in written format that it causes a danger as defined by the document that all arborists and landscape architects, they're all throwing it at me already, so they already know what it is, assuming it meets that. So if a code officer came out and they saw a tree removed, and the person goes, well, I didn't have a permit, they just need to be able to show the letter. They don't even need to submit it to me or to the city. That is what is now required by state statute. We want to make sure we're in compliance with it, and therefore we'd be asking for adoption. It did go through all the reviews, as noted. First reading, the City Council approved, recommended approval. We are asking for approval as ZTA 22-12, Ordinance 2022-21.
All right, are there any comments or questions from the council? All right, I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-21. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-21 on the second reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Noble, second by Councilmember Bousquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. Moving on to public hearing for ordinance 2022-25, first reading. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-25, first reading, amending Chapter 16 zoning regulations by deleting Article 6 sign regulations in its entirety and adopting a new Article 6 sign regulations, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Excellent. And we have zoning administrator Karen Gardner-Young presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. As indicated, this is an amendment to our zoning regulations in regards to sign regulations. It has been quite a while since we have actually looked at our sign regulations, so we are actually recommending its deletion in its entirety and adopting a brand-new article. Part of the reason, and I know this is a forever theme with me, is to make it more user-friendly, easier to understand. So you will see that overall, there probably is not a lot of changes to it. Obviously, we needed to bring it into compliance with, law cases or statutes, but overall, many of the items didn't necessarily change. With that, I could not do this on my own, so I asked for assistance, and Susan Garrett is with us tonight, sitting to my left, and I will let her go ahead and
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, I'm Susan Garrett. I'm with Torsivia, Donlin, Gatto, and Rubin, your city attorneys. I've had the pleasure of working with Karen on this project. As you can see from having looked at it in the agenda packet, it's quite a large document. And so what I'm going to try to do tonight is give you an overview of why we're doing this, what has changed, what hasn't changed, and hit some of the highlights of the new features that I think you may be particularly interested in. So why are we amending the sign code now? Well, Karen has already touched on this. There's a need to update the code to reflect developments over the past few years in the law. Also, we've tried to reorganize it to make it clearer, make it a little bit more user-friendly. We also wanted to codify the master sign plan requirements. We've been using master sign plans, but they haven't really been covered by the code, so we wanted to provide a process for that and guidelines for that. And we added an amortization schedule for non-conforming signs. I will come back to that in more detail in a moment. So what began the changes in the law was a very significant United States Supreme Court case in 2015 known as Reed versus the town of Gilbert out in Arizona. And what we learned from that case was that if your sign regulations are based on the content or the message that's contained in the sign, they're going to be subject to strict scrutiny under the First Amendment. If someone challenges them, they have to survive strict scrutiny, which is a very high standard. Essentially, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to defend those type of regulations under a First Amendment challenge. Put another way, if you have to read the message in the sign in order to determine what regulations apply to it, you are probably regulating based on content, and there's a concern. What you are permitted to do is to regulate as to time, place, and manner of the signs. So the regulations should focus on the allowance, the number of signs, on what properties are allowed to have how many signs, what are the structural requirements for the signs, where they can be placed, setbacks and things like that, the size of the signs, and the time of posting in some cases. So those are all considered time, place, and manner restrictions that will not be subject to this strict scrutiny, this very rigorous review. So in looking at the existing sign code, what has been added or changed? As Karen mentioned, really, as to the specific types of signs and the regulations that apply to the signs, there hasn't been a whole lot changed. You're not going to see a lot of new types of signs going up in Green Acres, or signs, more signs, or different locations for the signs than you've been seeing before. But, when I first reviewed the code, I didn't see a lot of content-based regulations, but we have reviewed it to remove as much of that as possible. We've also included a very expanded statement of purpose and intent, and that goes right in the code. It's going to go right in Muni Code rather than just being in the whereas clauses of your ordinance. And that makes it clear to everyone who looks at the ordinance, including users and members of the public and the courts, that the purpose and the intent of the ordinance is not to limit speech. We've added also an unusually elaborate severability clause so that if one little piece of the code is challenged and found to be unconstitutional, then the rest of the ordinance will not be affected. We've added an amortization schedule for non-conforming signs. And so what that means is, if this ordinance is approved, as of the effective date, the time period in most cases is 5 years. There's a 5-year time period for those signs to be brought into compliance or removed. And the law allows us to have amortizations of nonconformities like that, as long as you give people enough time to allow them to realize their investment, get a reasonable return on their investment in the sign. So after 5 years, it's not unreasonable to require somebody to change or remove a sign. We've also updated the definitions according to to make them match some of the changes that we've made. We have codified the master sign plan requirement that I mentioned earlier. We've regrouped the sign regulations, although they haven't changed dramatically. We've regrouped them into categories, so right away in the code you can see what signs are out and out prohibited, what signs don't require permits, what the regulations are for temporary signs. Some require no permit, some require a special use permit, and then all the rest of the signs require permits. The master sign plan, that's Division 3 of the proposed ordinance. This applies to large developments such as commercial centers, plazas, other multi-tenant buildings, planned developments. They're will be required to submit and attain approval for a master site plan. And the reason for that is that it promotes the harmonious appearance of signage on these larger developments. It allows them, it requires them to coordinate their signage so there's not such a cluttering effect. It also, it's a little bit of additional requirement placed on the large developers for their signage, but it's probably something they do anyway. In addition to that, they are also allowed some flexibility under the master sign plan review process. There are some limited administrative variances that can be granted. So there's actually a benefit to the property owners or developers in that sense, that they get a little bit of flexibility if it's justified when they are having their master sign plan reviewed. Temporary signs, I think, are an area of a great deal of interest. And temporary signs can be regulated not according to content, but according to when they are posted. So the temporary signs that I think are most problematic, or can be, but everybody wants to be able to have them, are signs in connection with an election. So the regulations allow temporary signs, and there are limits on the size depending on the type of the zoning district, limits on the number and on the size. But temporary signs are allowed 60 days before an election and then must be removed within 3 business days afterwards. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be looking at the signs to make sure that they are election signs, but that's the time that they can go up, and they have to meet those physical standards and placement standards. Same thing for property that is up for sale or lease, or when the property that is up for sale is open to the public. There's an allowance for temporary signs to go up under those conditions. Yes, that's difficult to regulate because everybody knows when the election is over with, but it's hard to know when property has been sold. To some extent, it's not going to be possible to regulate, but if the signs have been up forever and ever and you're getting complaints about it, then there is the possibility to investigate. There are temporary signs that require a temporary use permit, so that goes through a staff review process, and that includes banner signs, human signs, and construction signs. So there, again, are guidelines about the dimensions, the materials, and the placement of those signs, and that is reviewed by staff in connection with a temporary use permit. All other signs require sign permits. We've organized the sign regulations by zoning district, so depending on what zoning district your property is, you get a certain number of signs, a certain number of freestanding signs, building signs. You may be allowed to have canopy signs, menu board signs, memorial signs. Again, it depends on the district in which the property is located. But in each instance, even if the name of the sign category implies a certain function for the sign, the regulations deal only with the physical characteristics of the sign, without regard to the message. And that ends my prepared presentation. I'll be happy to either turn it over to Karen and then take questions, or whatever is your pleasure. I need to apologize for the fact that my graphics are not as good as Karen's. I'm a lawyer, so we do things straightforward and simple. But would you like to say anything further? Or will okay.
Are there any comments or questions from the council? Deputy Mayor Tharp.
If this is adopted, do we have an idea of how many signs might be impacted that would now be non-conforming, that would need to be conforming within 5 years?
I can answer part of that, and then I'll let Karen answer the rest of it. One of the things we've included in the ordinance, if adopted, is that the staff will undertake to establish a registry of non-conforming signs. And so to some extent, the burden will be on the sign owner if they know if they're not sure they're on the registry, to come in and document the fact that they have a sign that is legally non-conforming as of the date of the ordinance. As far as how many existing signs may be non-conforming, I certainly can't answer that. Can
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, there are some that are out there. I can tell you, when they come in and get a permit, they're in compliance with the code. But if they don't come in and get a permit, or we've had the example before that they were annexed in, then they may have some that are non-conforming. But this code then is going to deal with that. That even if you are annexed in, again, the intention is to give you the benefit and get the return of your money on the signage that you have. Many of these have been around a long time, so we felt that 5 years, and it's staggered. So it's like, year 1, you should submit something. In year 2, you get it approved. In year 3. So, it's not like we're saying, don't do anything until 4.5 years, and then we all of a sudden get inundated. I think the other item we'd like to try to do, and a suggestion certainly from the city managers, maybe we try to encourage them to come in. So can we try to, maybe waive fees or do something to get it in? Now, I want you to understand, there are existing sign plans. They're 1 page. They were done through letters. And basically they said, the property owner said, the signs are going to be red, they're going to be this and that and this and that. That's not what a master sign plan is. A master sign plan is really to outline, what is the requirements. You need to get insurance, you need to get the city's approval, the signs have to be centered, they have to be a certain color, certain lettering, and it's not only building signs, it's your freestanding signs. Where are those located, so we know that they're not in a triangle where it might affect traffic. So we've actually had Buttonwood Plaza actually recently came in because they had a tenant who wanted to do a different color scheme than what his approval was. And so he actually came in on the first master sign plan. And actually, I'm working with him, kind of sent him actually today an example of what should meet the requirements of a master sign code. Because I know it's hard. They're not planners. They're real estate agents. So I figured this would kind of give them a base that they could work with. And then, we could use that as the base and at least give somebody to start with. Not saying that's what they have to adopt, but at least it gives them what should be included as part of a master sign plan.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so this is a public hearing. I'm going to open it up for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed.
Mayor, before you start, I just want to make sure I know, we kind of did pass off here. Just wanted to say staff is recommending approval of ordinance number 2022-25, and we're asking that everything's in the file be included as part of the public record.
Excellent. Do I have a?
Make a motion to approve 2022-25 on first reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Deputy Mayor Tharp, second by Councilmember Bousquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. All right, moving on to ordinance 2022-26, first reading. If I can have the city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-26, first reading, amending Chapter 10, Personnel, Article 4, Retirement, Pensions, and Other Employment, Employee Benefit Programs, Division 3, Retirement Systems Authorized, Section 10-148, entitled Public Safety Officers and Firefighters, Retirement Plan and Trust, amending the Florida Municipal Pension Trust Fund Defined Benefit Plan and Trust Adoption Agreement to provide for a deferred retirement trust option plan for those public safety officers who continue to remain members of the city's retirement plan after becoming PBSO employees, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, inclusion in the code, severability, and an effective date.
And we have our city manager, Andrew McHugh, presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As you recall, on February the 1st, 2016, sworn law enforcement officers of the city became employees of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. At that time, some officers elected to continue to participate in the city's retirement plan after becoming PBSO employees. The city has agreed to amend the retirement plan to provide for a deferred retirement option, or a DROP, for sworn law enforcement officers of the city who continue to participate in the plan after becoming PBSO employees. To ensure no cost to the city, the plan has been amended to provide that should the city's minimum required pension contribution exceed the amount of the PBSO employer contributions to the city retirement plan in any plan year based on the most recent actuarial valuation of the plan, the city may use the contribution reserve account to cover any shortfalls. The city's pension attorney has prepared the ordinance and all supporting documents, and staff is recommending approval of ordinance 2022-26 on first reading.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2022-26 on first reading.
Second.
Was that Councilmember Bousquet? Okay. I have a motion made by Councilmember Noble, second by Councilmember Bousquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes 4-0. All right. Man, I think staff did this on purpose. Public hearing, non-public hearing, public hearing, just to trip me up a little bit, you know? All right, so we have a public hearing for ordinance 2022-27, second reading. If I can have our city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-27, second reading, adopting Chapter 13, Taxation, Article 4, additional homestead exemption for persons 65 and older, to provide for an additional $5,000 homestead exemption for qualifying persons 65 years of age and older, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, delivery, and an effective date.
And once again, we have our city manager, Andrew McHugh, presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. At the July 18th, 2022 council meeting, staff was directed to prepare an ordinance for the council's consideration to implement this program in the city. A majority of the council supported a $5,000 exemption. The income limit for 2022 for the 2022 exemption is $32,561. There are currently 533 properties in the city that qualify for the exemption. The council did approve on first reading ordinance 2022-27 on August the 15th, 2022. The financial impact to the city based on the $5,000 exemption level will be $17,056. Staff is recommending approval of ordinance 2022-27 on second reading.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions for our city manager? All right, do I have a motion?
No.
Public.
Hearing.
Public.
Oh, this is, of course, you see, I got tripped up. All right, this is a public hearing. I'd like to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-27, 7. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the ordinance?
My name is Brett Brown, and good evening again. When did Green Acres initiate the homestead or exemption? Because I'm running across records from 39 where there was homestead exemption for Green Acres. Is that something that stopped in 47 when the town was dissolved, or?
I think that the
Or
homestead
is this the
exemptions are
first?
at the
That's-
state level right now.
Yeah, that's done at the state level. Property appraiser handles that, and the applications are submitted through the property appraiser's office. The city doesn't manage that.
Oh, well, the tax records I'm looking at, there's one for the drainage district, 2 cents you paid them. There's one for the city, 21 cents, with a homestead exemption of 5,000.
Right, yeah, I'm pretty sure the homestead exemptions are managed at the state level. I know that I believe 3 or 4 years ago, they did an additional 25,000, which is from 75,000 to 100,000. I think this is the only homestead exemption that we're doing at the city level. So
local level.
I don't think anything else is.
Not that I'm a historian, but yeah, we may find that homestead was also given, this is in 39, 40, back in the day, just as a mention.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, from, as far as I know, Florida statute, general law governs all taxes, including exemption from taxes. What's being passed tonight is the only homestead exemption that state statute allows cities to adopt at their pleasure. So your regular homestead exemption is set forth by state statute. This is the one that municipalities are allowed to adopt. And that's been in place for years because only general law can govern taxes.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
Can we vote now?
So as I was saying, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed.
Move approval of ordinance 2022-27 on second reading.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Diaz, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. All right, moving on to ordinance 2022-28, first reading. If I can have the city clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-28, first reading, amending Chapter 4 Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 3, floodplain management to provide for accessory structures in flood hazard areas to specify elevations of manufactured homes and flood hazard areas to address market value and for other purposes, providing for conflict, severability, and effective date.
Thank you. And we have our building official, Scott Wood, presenting.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city manager. So this ordinance is mandated by the State Floodplain Management Office. It's been in existence for quite a number of years as part of participating in the National Flood Insurance Program. This is managed by FEMA and it's delivered to the public through a network of more than 50 insurance carriers, as well as FEMA directly. Through the National Flood Insurance Program, the city has a rating, the community rating system. We are currently at Class 9, which means our residents save about 5% on their flood insurance. So Class 6 through Class 9 communities undergo a verification visit every 5 years by ISO CRS to determine our compliance, make sure we're following the rules, anything we have improved on or anything we need to improve on. So these amendments that we've added, it's actually kind of a funny story. After we had our initial verification visit, the State Floodplain Office sent me the ordinance, says, here, we pulled this and we made some changes, so now you have to without this. So it's not like we even had a chance to do anything. So the last time we've done this was back in 2016. This ordinance only has a few changes. Accessory structures in the floodway have to be elevated. Manufacturers' homes, newly installed manufactured homes, they have to be elevated as well. In the way we calculate market value for substantial improvement or substantial damage, it's changed. We're not allowed to calculate property value anymore. It's just the value of the structure itself, not the land that it sits on. Again, these were sent to us by the State Floodplain Management Office. They were reviewed by our staff and by legal. And staff is recommending that we, one more thing that I do want to make a note of. When we approve this ordinance, which isn't really optional, we have to do it, but the approval of this ordinance provides for higher building elevations and improves our building score from Class 9 to a Class 8. So at that point, our residents will save 10% on their flood insurance instead of 5%. So it's a mandatory improvement to a Class 8 for us. And again, staff and legal have both reviewed this, and we do recommend approval of ordinance 2022-28.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
I can make a motion.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember.
I move that we approve ordinance 2022-28 on first reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Noble, second by Deputy Mayor Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. All right, moving on to ordinance 2022-30, first reading. If I can have our city clerk please read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance 2022-30, first reading, amending Chapter 11, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Places, Article 4, City Parks by creating a new section 11-76 to be entitled Smoking and Vaping Prohibited in Parks, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, inclusion in code, and effective date.
Thank you. And we have our city manager presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. Section 386209 of the Florida statutes preempted the regulation of smoking to the state and prohibited cities and counties from regulating smoking in local parks. Effective July 1, 2022, the Florida Legislature amended Section 386.209 to allow cities to restrict smoking in local parks, which are within the jurisdiction of the cities, and provided for the cities to restrict smoking in county-owned parks within the city's boundaries if the county does not have a conflicting ordinance. The only exception to the amendment is that the city cannot restrict the smoking of unfiltered cigars. There will be very minimal costs with the adoption of this ordinance. We will proceed with education and signage changes in hopes that we will gain compliance from that. The city attorney did prepare the ordinance in compliance with all statutes, and staff is recommending approval of ordinance 2022-30 on first reading.
All right, are there any comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2022-30 on first reading.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Deputy Mayor Tharp, second by Councilmember Busquet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carried. Councilmember Noble, did you?
Yes.
That motion carries 4-0. All right, we are now moving to discussion items. We have our campaign-free zone. That was going to be led by Councilmember Dugo. Unfortunately, she's not here. I believe our attorney's going to take a shot at this.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. As you may recall, back on July 18th of this year, this was on for discussion items. The council does have the ability to declare council chambers as a campaign-free zone. We had provided a letter outlining the law in this area and a draft resolution. Part of our recommendation is based on the fact that in your current council policy number 7 regarding public comment, public comment's either supposed to pertain to an agenda item or pertain to a policy issue, and if it's administrative issue, they're supposed to not publicly comment about it, but take that to the city manager, and that's your current public comment policy. So in a sense, what that means is you have created a limited forum in here for public comment and public speech if enforced. And as you recall, our discussion back in July was a preference, a consensus of the council to leave public comment open to more of a free speech flow, and there was not a desire to pursue that resolution. So that's where that issue kind of dropped off. Councilmember Duga then asked if it could be brought back up for discussion, and that leads us to today.
May I?
Councilmember Muscat.
As I recall, I brought this up on whatever date you said it was, the first time, and there was a consensus. I was for it, everybody else was against it. So I really don't see the point of doing this over again.
I do have a point of clarity of something that you brought up, Christie. So right now, the only purpose of public comments is to bring up something that's on the agenda?
It's two things: to bring up, to address an agenda item, or to address a policy issue. And I believe the intent of your public comment policy is so that administrative issues that would normally fall into your city manager's domain are brought directly to her or her staff. And this council, as the policy board, would then hear from the public on policy issues. That is currently your council policy number 7 on public comment. As we discussed, I don't believe it's being enforced in that you allow for folks to provide public comment pretty much openly.
Right.
And so part of our recommendation when you talk about a campaign-free zone is you're really limiting free speech by doing that. And we only recommend doing that when you've put parameters on public comment, because otherwise this is a public forum, a complete open public forum. Under your council policy, you've really kind of limited what public comment can be on, and that would go hand in hand with a campaign-free zone.
Right.
So if the council's desire is to perhaps allow public comment on whatever the public wants to speak about, then a campaign-free zone would not be something we would necessarily recommend. If you wanted to do it, then we would recommend also that you strictly enforce council policy number 7, which limits public comment to policy issues or agenda items.
Well, I guess I personally now have issues with that policy.
And that's certainly something that can be revisited to change that.
Because technically that, we just passed an ordinance to give an additional $5,000. If I'm understanding correctly, that person that came and brought it up to our attention, I could told her, no, you can't speak right now based on those rules, right? Because that's, am I
Are
understanding?
you
that?
referring to the item on the tax exemption, the public?
Well, because the way that came up was through a public comment. An individual came up to us and brought an issue, a concern of hers.
Right, so maybe I'm not being clear. You will, under your public comment, council policy number 7, you allow 2 ways to do public comment.
Right.
If it's an agenda item on our agenda,
Which it wasn't.
okay, so if it's not an agenda item, then it has to be a policy issue.
Right, and that wasn't a policy at that time. So technically that,
Right, so technically, you could have said, under our council policy and public comment, that's an administrative issue, and you should address that through the city manager's office.
I understand it, and I trust the city manager that if somebody goes to her, she's gonna do right by that person. But if somebody takes the time out to come here and share their concerns, I think it should be up to us to hear what our residents have concerns about. So I have a hard time limiting someone to only speak on an agenda item or an administrative policy item, I guess. So I guess what I'm asking the council is, do you guys feel the same way? And is this something that you guys would like to modify? Deputy Mayor Tharp.
I would be in agreement with you. We're talking 3 minutes of time. We don't get a lot of residents out here, unfortunately. I think the 3 minutes should be a free-fall. A great idea came out of it. And to ask the public to determine whether it's an agenda item, it's a policy item, or an administrative item, I don't think most people are going to get it, and I don't want anybody to waste their time. If they want to come out and speak for 3 minutes, I say have at it.
anyone else want to?
Well, I will
Councilmember
change.
Bousquet and then Councilmember
I'm
Diaz.
sorry, I'll change my vote because I was for this campaign-free zone, and considering the ramifications of it, I'm against it as well. So I agree with changing the policy.
Councilmember Diaz. And by the way, I want to, for the record, make a record of that Councilmember Noble is no longer in the dais. I believe he has left. So I just want to put that on the record.
We just had to go through and pass a zoning change on signage based on a Supreme Court case about freedom of speech. And I almost feel like this is a slippery slope if we wanted to, try to censor what somebody wants to come in and speak about. It's not always going to be pretty, we understand that, but I also think we sign up for being of service, and that comes with listening to the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly.
Okay, so I think what we would like to do is, do we want to give direction to our city manager and attorney to, I don't know, I guess, yeah, what do we do? Do we just remove the policy? Do we change the policy? What do we?
The policy, this portion of the policy, I think, has been in effect since like 97. We updated the policy, I believe, in 2019 to address some changes that happened in dealing with sunshine law and public comments. So I think what we would do is bring it back to delete that portion that public comment has to be limited to either the agenda item or a policy issue, and reword that, or just simply eliminate that provision within the policy. But I do believe there's portions of the policy that we'll want to keep in place.
Okay.
So that would be my recommendation, and I can work with the city manager on making that change and bringing it back.
Would it make sense to make it an ordinance rather than a policy, so it's not?
I would recommend keeping it as a policy because every now and then there's changes, like with the sunshine law and things like that. So if we do it through ordinance, then we'd have to change it through ordinance. And under the most recent changes that happened to allow public comment under sunshine law, they say it can just be done by policy. So if you can just do it by policy, my recommendation would be to keep it as a policy. That way, you're not going through 2 meetings to actually change it.
Okay.
And are there any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, so before I move on to the next item, I guess we don't have any more voting items, right? But, and I believe we still have a quorum, because I guess I become a voter, and we have 3 individuals. I mean, what's the policy here? I guess I'm looking for clarity when an elected official just decides to leave in the middle of a meeting.
You're allowed to still conduct a meeting, even if there's only yourself and another council member here, because for purposes of sunshine law, it's been properly noticed and it's being conducted in the sunshine. For purposes of taking official action, you need a quorum physically present.
Right.
So you would still be fine if you were to take any official action. Since we're now at discussion items and you usually do those just through consensus, I think you can finish out the rest of the agenda with having, the minimum quorum amount here.
Okay, so I guess if you guys ever feel like you want to leave at discussion items, you.
Oh, if I don't like something, I can leave. I'm leaving under item 26.
All right, so we're on to item 26, the city manager and city attorney's evaluation. It says here that this is led by city manager McHugh, but I don't know that that's the right thing to do, so I think I'll lead this conversation.
May I make a comment before we started, because you
Sure.
weren't here last meeting? I don't find it appropriate to review the city manager publicly in front of her subordinates. I think that's something that we should do individually. The only time I feel it should come to the public is if we're going to do something like fire her or give her an exceptional raise. That's just my feeling.
Deputy Mayor Tharp.
Thank you. And I think I'm in agreement. The only thing I think we should establish is we still need to perform an evaluation for the purposes of merit increases for both the city manager and the city attorney. How do we do that? I guess would be my first question. If it's not up here, it's a
Well,
question, and I don't know
So
the answer.
If I may jump in. It is uncomfortable to have these discussions up here. I completely agree. But how else would we have a discussion about the performance of the people that we supervise if it's not in this forum? Because you and I, or my fellow council members, we can't hold a discussion about things that may come forward in a meeting. So the only forum to have this discussion is here. So I disagree. I think this conversation, although it's a tough conversation, needs to be had. I think for the most part, we've been very happy with the performance of both, but we weren't so happy with the performance of the previous attorney. And the only way to air those things out were at this place. And if you don't want to make your personal remarks public at this meeting, I think you have every right not to bring those up. But I think at least, at the very minimum, this needs to be on the agenda once a year. And you have that opportunity to provide your opinion. But at the end of the day, the city manager and the attorney report to us. And the only way that the five of us can have an honest discussion is at this forum. So I know it's an uncomfortable, it could be, I guess it could be, because it hasn't been all that uncomfortable. But I think this needs to, at least it needs to be on the agenda. We decide how each individual can attack it. But if there was an issue with a city manager or an attorney, how else would we know if we didn't have this opportunity to speak about it? So that's my personal opinion, and it's up to all of us, I guess.
All right, I feel like if we have something negative, or in the case of the former city attorney, somebody would bring it up. We were all unhappy with him, so you bring it up at a meeting, and it didn't have to wait for a review. I just feel Mrs. McHugh's doing a wonderful job. I think we made a great change going to the law firm of Torcivia et al. And I don't know, I just think unless we're going to give somebody an exceptional raise, we don't need to, we praise our employees all the time, and I don't think it needs to be done publicly. And especially if it's negative, we don't need to beat them up, we can just take a vote.
Mayor, if I can.
City Manager McHugh.
I have no issue with any public discussion related to my performance, any discussion related to, the work that the city attorney does for us. At the last council meeting, when this came up, the discussion was surrounding what language was in my contract and having discussion related to that and looking for a recommendation how to proceed. So ultimately, I think that based on the language in the contract, the process that the council is doing now is not necessarily, it's not in line with the language in the contract, which again, I have no issue with, I don't have a problem with. It was providing that language in the staff memo to everyone so that all of you had that, so that you could have this discussion about where you wanted to go forward. Either way, if the council wants to continue to have the discussion in public, I welcome that. I have no issues with it. This was more that, as a result of it coming up at the last meeting, that was in response, that memo was in response to provide some background.
Once again, I'm shut down, what can I say?
Well, with nothing shut down, I think we're having a discussion.
Well-
Deputy Mayor Tharp.
Based upon your comments and Ms. McHugh's comments, I say we add it back to the next September 28th meeting.
We have our HR Director, Suzanne Skidmore.
Hi, Suzanne Skidmore, Director of HR. The only thing, I just need the direction for the merit increase. That's my whole thing is, it's in her contract that she gets COLA, cost of living adjustment, just like everybody does. I just need the direction is, if she's meeting the expectations, are we going to give her a 2.5? Are we going to give her more? So I know how to proceed October 1st.
And just to add to that, my self-evaluation was recommending a meets expectation, and that's what my plan was to recommend to the mayor and council.
So all of our reviews have been handed in, I believe, and there's a score. So if the score exceeds expectations, there's not even a discussion to be had there either, right? I mean, you can go by that?
If that's how you want to give me direction, I can go by that. It's up to you guys. I just need the direction, so I just don't come up with the salary myself.
The exceeds expectations merit increase, what, is that a range of a percentage?
So if you meet expectations here in the city, you get 2.5%. An exceeds is 3.5%, and a greatly exceeds is 4.5%. 85% of our employees here are 2.5% increases. That's the average, about 85%. That was last year. I haven't done this year's yet.
You got 2 weeks.
I got 2 weeks. But the majority of our employees are 85%, are 2.5%.
We'll make the decision. I guess we're debating whether we should have this publicly, so I would like to hear from Councilmember Diaz.
I mean, I would guess that if we've all rated our city manager, we've all submitted our reviews, and those get tallied and averaged, wouldn't that be the most logical way to proceed? And if it falls in meets, it's in meets. If it falls in exceeds, it's in exceeds. I mean, an average of all of our scores seems to be the most logical
That's how employees get rated, correct?
It's based on their supervisor's evaluation.
Well, I think we do the same thing.
Yep. Agreed.
Going back to whether we should have the discussion or not, I guess that's where I'm trying to get your feedback, Councilmember Diaz.
I mean, it's public record because we're submitting, our reviews are being submitted and they're open to public record laws. I don't know that it's a discussion we have to have here unless unless it's something that brings about concerns. As far as the city attorney, I didn't quite understand why we were doing that anyway, as they have a contract.
They do have a contract, but I think the formality of going through and deciding whether the person is doing what we were asking them to, it's important, because the previous person was definitely not. And just a point of clarity, I'm very happy with the services that we're receiving from our legal team, and I'm also very happy with the leadership that Andrea has provided. So I guess what I'm trying to do is provide transparency for everyone, and just making sure that even if you don't want to put your comments, your feedback in public, we still have it as an agenda item. If you wish to say something, it's your opportunity, and if you so choose to not say anything, then you have that opportunity. But you at least were given the opportunity. We come to the agreement of what the raise, the merit increase would be for that fiscal year. And did we receive any increases from our attorney?
No request for increase going into the next fiscal year. No, that was something we discussed.
Thank you. So I think I guess.
So just so I can make sure that I understand it clearly, you want me to take the average of all of you and give her the score? Would you like to know what her?
I haven't gone consensus.
Oh, okay, because I was confused. Okay.
I'm just making sure that we had a discussion. Is there any more feedback that anybody wants to provide?
Mr. Mayor, speaking for the city attorney's office, if the desire is to have a public evaluation, we are certainly fine with it, just as the city manager is. So we're open to whatever you want to do.
Thank you. Well, not that I want to have a public, review of item by item, but I think I just want to have it on the agenda. And if anybody wants to bring any concerns up, this would be the appropriate time. So I guess consensus on that is not, right? That's kind of what I read. Let me, my opinion is yes. And since I have a vote now, yes, and my consensus vote.
How do you?
Deputy Mayor.
Again, if both the city attorney and the city manager do not have an issue with it, I think it's a nice, let's add it to the agenda. Let's set the merit increase for the city manager. Like you said, if you want to make a comment, make a comment. If not, that would be, so I'd say let's add it to the next meeting.
No, but when do you need this merit increase by, like, today, right?
October 1st?
It's going to have, yeah, because then it would have to be voted on, right, Andrea? I mean, it would have to be voted on if it's anything but above it meets expectations.
Well, based on what they're saying, though, I think that if I'm understanding what they're saying that I would still continue to provide a self-evaluation. They would complete evaluations for me. The average of the evaluations that they're completing would become the coinciding increase.
Okay.
And just to insert.
That's already been done.
Just to insert my thoughts, I would ask that you go with the meets expectations that I did for my self-evaluation. That's what I would ask. I think that it's appropriate. I think in a position like this, I am grateful and I appreciate the feedback totally and completely, but I think in a position like mine, there are so many aspects to this role that really it is a matter of meeting expectations, that the level of the expectation that is set. While there may be some certain goals that are achieved that are above and beyond that, I still think overall it is meeting expectations. Because I know based on what I saw, the merit increase is going to be higher than meets expectations, and I feel that it should be meets expectations.
All right. All right, so we have two people for keeping this on the agenda item annually. Councilmember Diaz
Sure.
and Councilmember Busquet.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
As long as it's voluntary, I guess.
well, nobody can force you to give an item by item.
I guess not, because I didn't do it that way.
So we'll keep it on the agenda item annually. Now, in regards to the merit increase for our city manager, she was, what was the rating again? What's the average that came out to?
This year's?
Her personal evaluation, the merit, it was exceeds?
No, my personal evaluation was a meets expectations.
No, from the council.
Oh, from the council? I don't know all the averages, but I believe the averages of the evaluations received, I believe it was over a meets expectations. But my self-evaluation was a meets expectations.
So what I think, what I think Andrea is saying is she would like to go with what the meets expectations she will complete every year. She wants to be a meets expectations on her evaluation.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I'm trying to get clarity of what the average was for the actual rating. Do you have?
I think Quinn might have that as, yeah, I think that was from the last meeting.
Yeah, it was.
Right, so.
I'm looking for it. When was the last meeting?
It doesn't have to be the exact number. She fell in what bracket? Exceeds expectation or?
It would be, from what I'm looking at right here, because it's my first time seeing it, it would be about an average of a 3.5.
Really?
So if I was to, hold on, let me do my math here. No pressure.
The worksheet was done and tabulated, so.
Yeah, but I think she's putting all the
And
scores.
somebody didn't turn one in.
But that doesn't count as a zero.
Right.
All right, so I think the overall census from this council is that she exceeded expectations.
It would be greatly exceeds.
Greatly exceeds, right? But Andrea being Andrea, City Manager McHugh being City Manager McHugh, would like us to consider staying at the meets expectation
Yes.
and the 2.5%.
Yes.
So I think that's what we sort of have to decide.
Well, I'm okay with that. I mean,
I'm going to start to my right, Deputy Mayor Tharp, and then,
While I think she absolutely exceeds, one of the things I think we all love about Andrea, Ms. McHugh, is she's humble, and if she wants the 2.5%, she deserves more, but I think we should honor the 2.5 request.
Councilmember Busquet.
I agree. Exactly my thoughts.
Councilmember Diaz.
I don't like it, but I agree.
Right.
This is what leaders do. They lead. So thank you, City Manager McHugh, for doing that. I will honor your request. I will echo what everybody else said in this dais, that you probably deserve more. Do we have to do a vote on this?
I think it's just direction to the HR director.
Yeah, so we have consensus, so please, the 2.5 increase for City Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry,
Noting
we
that
were
she
tackling two
deserves
different
more.
things there, so I apologize. All right, Brett, this is your time. We are now moving on to discussion item, Green Acres Historical Museum, and that discussion will be led by City Manager McHugh.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm going to do my best to kind of maneuver through this, as I understand this was something that was brought up by one of our council members that's absent from the meeting. And at the last council meeting, she had asked for, I guess, an update regarding the Historical Museum. Were they meeting, anything like that? So I did offer that I had met with the president of the Historical Museum. We talked about some issues, things that were going on there. Of course, as a result of COVID, that kind of sets things back and kind of starting over on some things just based on the absence and not having the ability to be able to meet. So, but I did request and received, which was included in your packets, a copy of the lease agreement with the Historical Museum, which the lease agreement was a 10-year agreement that was entered into in 2012. The language regarding the renewal of that agreement, it automatically will renew unless either party wishes to terminate that agreement. So that term has entered the renewal period. And then in addition to that, the bylaws were provided as well. And related, in response to the question by Councilmember Dugo, relative to the meetings, there is a section in Article 10 of the bylaws that outlines that the society shall meet regularly at least 6 times per year at a time and place designated by the Board of Directors, except that the society must meet in the month of April for the annual meeting. So that's really what I have to offer related to that. Again, I don't know all of the questions that potentially were going to come as a result of this being on the agenda. Those were the things that were discussed at the last meeting.
So, are there comments or questions from the council before I ask my questions? So were the point of the discussion regarding the lease?
I think the discussion was relative to seeing the bylaws, getting an understanding of what the requirements were, if any, related to meetings and what meetings they were currently having. I believe it was related to that, but it was more that the question came up that, are they meeting? Are they open? I understand that they are currently open, I believe, by appointment. So, that's how it's being managed. But again, I don't know what direction the discussion was going to be planned to go in. Those were just the comments that were heard at the last council meeting, and that's what I provided in response. I don't know if there was going to be any additional discussion related to it.
So she wasn't, the questions were regarding the actual group, which technically don't fall under our purview, correct?
No, I think the questions were regarding the city provides space to the museum, and the questions were regarding, are they meeting, are they open? And in response to that, I had a copy of the lease. I requested a copy of the bylaws, which I included in the packet, and that was really in response, but I don't know if there was going to be any additional follow-up questions or any direction to staff related to it. But really, I believe the direction would only be related to the space, because outside of that, we don't have any authority over the museum.
So you said the contract, with the lease was a 10-year lease,
10-year lease, correct.
dated in 2012?
2012, that is correct.
So is that lease coming up for renewal?
No, the term of the lease will commence on the effective date of the agreement, and it's for a 10-year period. Unless it's terminated sooner, the agreement will automatically renew for an additional 10-year period unless either party provides 60-day notice of its intent not to renew prior to the expiration of the first 10-year term. Now, granted, there's language in the lease relative to termination. It doesn't mean that there's just an automatic 10 years and it doesn't end if the Historical Museum decides that they want to move to another location, or for whatever reason, the city decides that, they need to make changes to, due to space, whatever those issues are. There is language in the agreement that either party can terminate the lease, but we are now in that second 10-year term.
So we are in the second.
Yes, because
So the clock
prior,
rolled.
correct, the 10 years, that's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, is there anything that you would like to bring up for this discussion?
Thank you, Brett Brown, President of the Green Acres Historical Society. I listened to the recording of the last council meeting when the questions were brought up about the Historical Society and the museum, and I want to thank Andrea for taking a tour of the museum and expressing our concerns and listening to her concerns. I almost have to premise this by COVID coming in 2018. Does that sound right? We had our last meeting in January, and March is when they stopped, everything stopped. We do have a board, and it's a little bit different than the one that's on Sunbiz. Brian and Maria Welliver serve as vice president and director, and the branch manager of Fifth Third Bank had volunteered several months ago to be the treasurer, but she's been out sick, so I've been filling in on that position. So we have more of a board than just myself that shows up on Sunbiz, but I do feel like I'm doing all the work. And I'm hoping my merit raise will be in there as well. One of the things we have, I heard Councilman Nobleman mentioned that they are really in need of space, meaning the museum, and we do need additional space. Presently, we have items that are in a common area, and we haven't had a chance to put up more of a display, but the building itself is we have 1/3 of the building. 1/3 of the building is under common usage, and then the other third is, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know if there's any other tenants in there other than the COP program. I don't see anybody using the far west section of the building. Is anybody know what that is used for? Or?
The building is used by PBSO. There's the common areas, and then there's the space that's dedicated to the Historical Museum.
Okay, so the third is PBSO. Is that the COP program? Or?
Yes, it is the COP program, but I also believe that, there are some detective supervisors or detectives that are also using the space as well.
So, Brett, if I'm understanding correctly, you guys are active, you're still meeting, you guys are planning to open up the museum again, and I know that you guys do tours for the schools, correct?
Estelle was the last one that did the tours.
Okay.
And even when I became the new president, she asked if she could continue in that capacity. I have been in touch with Green Acres Elementary School, and they called me up about the same predicament, not predicament, loss of Estelle. And I said I would be glad to fill in on that position. And then I asked her if she can contact me. Usually it's later in the season, like March or April, I think is when they do the tours, the children. So I told her I'd be glad to do that. Now, ironically, we have been open every Saturday for the last month because of either tours or people dropping off materials or people coming from out of town for tours, as well as we had an engineer that came in that was looking for the history of one of the buildings that they were looking to approve for financing. The hope of us in the museum is to occupy one additional space that isn't being used, and this is where it gets confusing because the far western portion of the building was, I think, the intention was to be used as a substation, if I'm not mistaken, for Palm Beach Sheriff's Office.
Well, that's not really.
Wasn't there a debate many years ago about setting up a substation in the original section?
I don't.
I think
I
that
don't
Am
know
I
the
the only one that knows that, or?
that predates me, unfortunately, so.
Well, if that's the case, it's not currently being used as a substation. It's not.
No, I understand that, but I think when it was built and they received the grant money, that section, I don't see anybody over there.
That's not relevant to this conversation, is it?
Well, I think we're getting some historical perspective. So Brett, let's, just because it's getting a little late. You guys would like to perhaps look at expanding a little bit? Are we talking about a room, an office? How much space additionally are you looking at that you need?
The area that's on the west side is approximately 700 square feet. The common area where the COP program is also about 700 square feet. We presently occupy around 1,100 square feet, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it's on the lease that you guys have.
Okay.
Back of the lease. So I had suggested that if we can utilize the museum where the conference room is and that office, then the COP program could occupy the PBSO area that's set up for Sheriff's Department.
So let's do this, because I think that we're still trying to wrap our heads around this. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, McHugh, to have a conversation with you as the president.
We've already discussed it.
Okay, but that's not what, we weren't presented that by the city manager. So I want to make sure that she gets her head around this and then she'll present it to us. Is that an agreement by the council?
That's fair.
That's fair?
Fair, good.
Okay. All right.
Also, I might mention that our lease is not in effect because, as the attorney knows, contract law, there's no consideration on the lease.
I thought City Manager McHugh just said that it could automatically renew.
Oh, somebody has to pay.
It automatically renews, but there's no consideration in the contract.
There doesn't need to be consideration of the contract when there's terms in there that says the lease automatically renews. There doesn't need to be another vote by the council. We have contracts, many contracts, where if there's a clause that there's an automatic renewal, whether it's years, months, it automatically renews. It doesn't come before the council.
Well, Sam was kind enough to pay the dollar for the lease as mayor, and I was hoping that Joel would have had to have paid that dollar for our 10-year lease.
The $1 fee?
Yes.
I'd be honored to.
Thank you. I had a couple others, but thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else, but you're welcome for a tour. Susan was going to come for a tour, and anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate it. All right, there. What? I know. I've been navigating blindly here. All right, we're moving on to comments from the public on non-agenda items only, and it has to be policy related. No? Okay. We are moving on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up to the discussion with the zoning administrator regarding the BTRs, the question you would ask, she did provide the 2023 renewal numbers. That total amount is $311,857.94. With the 5% increase, that 5% increase reflects $15,592.
So it's a $15,000 increase.
Correct, to the total amount.
How many BTR applications?
Oh, that I don't know. I will have to find that out.
Anything else, City Manager McHugh?
Yes, I do have a couple of other things. Just a couple of reminders on some things. On the 17th, this Saturday, we do have an International Coastal Cleanup. Everyone will be meeting at the community center from 8:30 to 12:30. There have been some identified areas within the city that volunteers are going to be doing cleanup. If there are any volunteers that are students that are looking for community service hours, we welcome them. In addition to that, there are a couple of homes in the city that have some pretty large liens against them. Public Works is actually going to be going out tomorrow. Just some of the residents in those homes are either incapacitated, older, just don't have the ability to take care of some of those issues. So Public Works is actually going to be going out tomorrow to address a couple of those properties and fix some of the things that are there that are an issue. Again, just another reminder, we'll make sure we put it on your agendas, the comp plan meetings on the 26th and 29th of October, 6 to 7:30 on the 26th, and on the 29th, 10 to 11:30. The only other thing I did want to bring up was related to the Charter Review Committee. As I'm sure everyone remembers, the Charter Review Committee was established by resolution. Excuse me, there were initially 9 members to that committee. Each council member did get, and the mayor got a representative, and then there was a representative from Fire Rescue, the business community, and a city employee. Those terms expired on the 5th of September. And as our policy states, the city clerk's office did send an email prior to the expiration of those terms, asking if the members wish to continue to serve. Some advised that they did wish to continue to serve. Some, I think one did not. And then there were some that did not respond. So I wanted to bring before the council, because under the normal process, we would then bring back those that wish to serve again and get a vote from the council to move forward, and then move forward with filling those vacant spots. But I wanted to get some direction from the council on how you wanted to proceed. Again, the Charter Review Committee was established by resolution, I believe, and I'll defer to our city attorney if that's something that the council doesn't have a need or doesn't wish to proceed. We can hold off and then through resolution again, or should we, looking for the city attorney's guidance, should there be reappointments even though there may not be any meetings slated anytime soon, or any desire by the council for the Charter Review Committee to meet?
Are there comments or questions, direction? Let's have this. I personally feel that we should always have a charter committee, even though maybe a formality, they meet once a year, and they can decide if there's anything that they want to address. I believe I lost my representative. Yes. She's standing here, or she's sitting here next to my left, so.
Correct.
So I would like to be able to appoint someone, so I have a representative there. And I'm pretty sure if any other council members, that they lost their representative, they probably want to have their representative on board. Christy, do you want to say anything?
No, Mayor, I think the manager did a good job of explaining it. It's kind of at your pleasure how you want to proceed, because the resolution that established the Charter Review Committee just really set term limits and didn't really get into the fact, once all those terms expire, what really then happens. So it's really at your pleasure in terms of how you want to proceed next with reappointing perhaps the folks that are interested, or appointing a whole new Charter Review Committee. It's really at your pleasure, so I think that's why the manager brought it up, to find out what your direction is.
I will defer to Councilmember Diaz, since she served on that committee. She probably has a lot more insight into where things were left off and what her personal, or what her input is.
Thank you, Mayor. I do feel that Chairman Shaw did a remarkable job while I did serve on the committee, making sure that we went through and looked at some things. What I loved that he did was he made sure that items that might have been in the past maybe discussed but no action decided on, the committee had the opportunity to review them. And actually, Ms. Robarts sitting here she is on that committee as well. And so it gave the committee another opportunity to maybe look at something with a fresh, set of eyes and new lenses. I do feel that it is a committee that should just always be in place. It's always good to make sure that, that things are as they should be, that it's being reviewed, that it's up to date. Something as simple, and I know that we discussed it. I don't know that it actually went through, but I know we even looked at, there are many places that it refers to gender-specific language and that sort of thing. So I think it's always great to have the review committee exist and go over the items. As far as who the appointees are, whether they're automatically renewed or not, I think it's a good opportunity to always discuss with them if they would like to continue to serve.
Right. I think one of the items is, and maybe I'm looking too much into this, but when there is change here on the dais, should every person up here have a representative on that board? So I guess that's also something for us to consider, because, and I guess I'll use your specific situation as an example. Perhaps the person that's in that position or that district perhaps doesn't reflect the, so I think that's something also that we should weigh. Deputy Mayor Tharp.
I am in agreement on both points. I think it should be something that we always have in place, and I agree. If a council member changes who it is, that new council member, I don't know how to do that, because the original was appointed. I'm sure the attorneys can figure that out. So maybe we need to shorten terms. I don't know the answer, but certainly would be in agreement with that.
Councilmember Biscay.
I'm in agreement with that. I'd like to review who my choices were and perhaps reappoint some. I think Chuck was mine, I'm not sure.
I thought he was Peters.
He was, I think, Councilmember Dugo's.
I think everyone would vote for Mr.
Yeah,
Shaw.
I think he was, I think he was Councilmember Dugo's. I think that what we can do is we can provide the list of the members and provide if those that wish to serve again, but if anything, the council can just, submit names again, and we can just do the process as a new slate of members, and some may be reappointed, some may not, just as part of that process. If that's okay for our city attorney, that we can handle it that way.
I think perhaps they mirror the terms of the person that appointed them.
That would work.
Anything else, City Manager?
The only last thing I have, considering that our next meeting is on the 28th of September, I'm requesting that we cancel the October 3rd meeting, because we're only talking a few days from one to the next.
Agreed.
Agreed.
All right, we got consensus. All right, our city attorney's report.
No report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the mayor's and city council report, I'm going to start to well, she's signing, so Deputy Mayor Tharp, to my right.
Just, you know, we had a nice farewell to our friends at the Atlantis Gateway a few weeks ago. It was, you know, hopefully a nice send-off for them. Sad times, but, you know, on to new opportunities, I guess, for everyone. So that's all I have this evening.
Councilmember Diaz.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Councilmember Busquet. I have a short list. So I haven't been here in the previous two meetings. And the first item I have is sort of apologize because I wasn't able to be here. First of all, not to make excuses, the first time I was sick and then I lost my grandmother in back-to-back. And she lived to be 100, so I'm extremely excited that she had a full life. But, you know, it's one of those things that you want to be here, but you also have to do right by with your family. So I apologize that I wasn't able to be here. I take this very serious, and being here I consider this to be my job. And I apologize that I wasn't here present. Kara left, and it was very weird calling her a consultant. I did want to, and I'm still going to put it on the record, and I'm going to speak into the mic, so hopefully she'll listen to this. You know, I would love to keep her. I would love for her to stick around a little bit longer. Maybe we give her, you know, some extended time before we go out and do another search. Maybe after being home for a couple of months, she'll want to come back. No, but really, like, the point on my comments is I met Kara when I took over this position, and and I'm going to tell her this personally too, but very professional, very level-headed. You know, she's good at what she does, and she has been nothing but an asset to the city of Green Acres. So at some point, and this part, if you're listening, Kara, stop listening. I would like to recognize her. I think she deserves to be recognized. So I want to make sure that she doesn't leave this body here without us doing something for her. And I think she contributed a lot to this team. And if she wants to come back, I think she can still, we can still make that happen.
Absolutely.
Another item that I want to bring up. I don't know if you're hearing what's happening out there, but we have to start taking this job. Not start, I'm using the wrong word, but we have to always take this job very seriously. The governor is removing people. You saw what he did in Broward with removing people from the school board. I believe he removed another individual from a commissioner, I believe, down in Miami. So when we have to make sure that we're always doing the best job that we possibly can, that we're looking at everything, that we're not rushing through meetings, that we don't leave meetings, that we do what we're elected to do. Because this position is not a light position. You could be arrested, you can serve time, you can be removed from office. And I'm not saying anybody here falls into that, but we have to do our job, because just because you're an elected official doesn't mean that you can't be removed from office, that you can't be held liable. We saw what the letter that was just sent to the school board regarding safeties and perhaps shortcuts. Each board member at the school district received a letter. And that's part of the reason why these 4 individuals were removed from the school district in Broward. So just bringing that up. That's a major thing that we should always keep in the back of our head when we're making these decisions, that we look at every angle, we study the item that's before us, and we take the time and we ask the right questions, because it's our job. And at the end of the day, we could very easily be escorted out. Let's see, Citizen Advisory Board. So I get to appoint someone for the TPA. They have a Citizens Advisory Board. I am looking for someone who wants to step up. It's one Wednesday a month. They meet, I believe it's at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So if you know anyone in the community that wants to be involved, while the topic is transportation, you don't have to be an expert. You have to be an expert of traffic, of seeing things that are not safe out on the road. Because this is the place that you bring it up, and it comes before the county, and then we start talking about possible issues that are out there. So if you know someone, I need to appoint someone to the Citizens Advisory Board. There is also a Vision Zero, which I know this board adopted, Vision Zero. There's also a board that I could appoint someone. That is not required. The Citizens Advisory Board is required. So if you have one or two individuals that want to get involved, this is a great way to get involved. The requirement for the Citizens Advisory Board is that they have to reside in Green Acres. So, and the Vision Zero, it could be a staff member. So we could.
And we actually, I think, identified one that would be a really good one, because I think that really the Vision Zero relates to multimodal transportation, whether it's biking, walking, all of those different things. So when Kara and I did discuss that, there were a couple of employees that we thought that actually live in the city that have a great interest in things like multimodal transportation, which could be a real big asset.
Let's put those names in
Okay.
to the TPA. The last item I want to bring up is, I don't know if you heard the rumors. Well, they're not rumors, they're actually true. The housing bond. Last time we talked about rumors in this up here, it got interesting, so we won't use that word. But no, there is a house. There is a housing bond that's gonna be on the November election, basically asking the residents whether we want to pay for the build out of 20,000, I believe it's 20,000 units, correct? Over what, 20 years?
I believe 20 years, it's $200 million.
$200 million. I saw a number, I think it's about $4 and maybe 50 cents per 100,000 of your home value. So if your home is worth, $300,000, you would be paying maybe like $14 a year. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because it's important. I think it's a decision that the residents have to make, but I have no idea. I mean, housing market right now, I'm seeing rents that are, you should visit Zillow. If you haven't already done that, look at rents. Houses in Green Acres are renting, or at least they're asking for $4,500 for a home in Green Acres. Could you imagine in Palm Beach Gardens and some other areas that are, the real estate is a little bit more costly? Anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up, I've been on this for a while now about housing, how we need it. I have no idea where our workforce in the near future is going to live. My daughter, who just went to college, I have no idea if she wants to stay in Palm Beach County, how she's going to be able to afford to live here. I mean, if she had to pay, if four of them got into a home that they're paying $4,000, I have no idea how she would be able to do everything. So it's an issue, and I keep bringing it up, and I want to continue to have this discussion, and I'm not telling you how to vote on this particular issue. Although the county did vote on something today, the federal dollars that are going to be coming down for housing, but it's more for people that are in need. They need to help
Yes,
pay.
it's rental assistance, it's first time, it's assistance with down payments for buying homes, things like that, yeah. And we'll, through our public information officer, we make sure that we always push that information out.
So, so that's good that they're doing that. I don't think that, you know, there's a major gap. We still need, there's a lot more work. And if this bond ends up going through, it wouldn't, I think I read it wouldn't be like 2 to 3 years before the actual first house is built. So keep an eye on that. It should be on your ballot on the November elections. And if you want more information, I think there's the Economic Council is the one kind of leading this effort. So you may want to look to them to get a little bit more.
Yeah, that is correct. Unfortunately, the Economic Council will be the entity that is going to be doing a lot of the discussion, providing information, because there is a statute that says that no resources, no government resources, whether it's discussion, whether it's staff time, whatever that is, can be used as it relates to a referendum or anything of that nature. So, you know, the county is handling that separately with that group.
So discussing it up here, does that count?
So it's a fine line. I'd have to look to our city attorney. That's probably a fine line. I know that there was a lot of discussion about that and how that, you know, what is considered resources, what is considered public resources. So it's a tough one.
I think having a discussion in a public forum like this is fine. Once you start getting into printing things and sending out like you used to do when you'd have referendum coming up on your election, the educational campaigns you used to do, those are severely restricted now. And so a lot of folks our agencies are having to look at outside, you know, supporters to utilize their funds to do such things. That creates other issues, but we'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis to make sure it complies with the current law.
Yeah, once again, it's just, I'm putting that out there, that this is out there. It's an issue in our community, and it's we have to make a decision, and it's a little tough. That's all I have for tonight. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, meeting adjourned.